dozens of agency-specific policy deliverables. Also on Monday, the president will host, as you know, a bipartisan bill signing ceremony for his bipartisan infrastructure deal, where he will be joined by members of Congress who helped write the historic bill and a diverse group of leaders who fought for its passage, governors and mayors of both parties and labor and business leaders. Also on Monday, very busy day, have your coffee and spinach or whatever you like for breakfast. On Monday evening, the president will meet virtually with President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China. The two leaders will discuss ways to responsibly manage the competition between the United States and the PRC, as well as ways to work together where our interests align. On Tuesday and Wednesday, the president will continue traveling across the country to highlight how his bipartisan infrastructure deal delivers for the American people. So on Tuesday, he's going to be visiting the New Hampshire 175 bridge over the Pemigewasset, I see how I did that, river in Woodstock, New Hampshire, which has been on the state's red list of bridges in poor condition since 2013. There he will discuss how the infrastructure deal will repair and rebuild our nation's roads and bridges while strengthening resilience to climate change. On Wednesday, he will travel to Detroit to visit GM's Factory Zero electric vehicle assembly plant. He will highlight how his infrastructure plan will build electric vehicle charging stations across the country, making it easier to drive an electric vehicle, and also investing in a huge clean energy industry that will put many people back to work. In both Michigan and New Hampshire, he will underscore the bipartisan infrastructure deal will create good-paying union jobs. On Thursday, the president will host Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada and Prime Minister Obrador of Mexico for the first North American Leaders Summit since 2016. He will participate in individual bilateral meetings with each leader ahead of the summit that day as well. And last but certainly not least, on Friday, he will pardon the national Thanksgiving turkey, continuing the transition in a ceremony in the Rose Garden. This is the 74th anniversary of the National Thanksgiving Turkey presentation. We're all very excited to meet the soon-to-be famous turkey and its alternate. Did you all know there's always an alternate? Two turkey lives are actually saved, which were raised in Jeffrey, Indiana. With that, Zeke.
Thanks, Jen, and welcome back.
Thank you.
On the health and COVID subject, could you speak a little bit about how frequently the president is tested for COVID-19 right now, and then also when does he plan to undergo his annual physical?
He will be doing his physical soon. As I've noted before, as soon as he does that, we will provide that information transparently to all of you. He is regularly texted under the guidance of his doctor. We do provide that information regularly to all of you. I'm happy to check and see when the last time he was tested and provide that to you after the briefing as well.
Thanks. And does the White House have any reaction to the sentencing of American journalist Danny Fenster in Myanmar? And any interaction from the White House or efforts on the part of the White House to try to get him free?
I will say that obviously we are always concerned about the detention of individuals around the world, journalists, dissidents, people who are speaking freely and speaking on behalf of the media as well. In terms of direct action, it really would be under the purview at this point of the State Department. I would point you to them for any updates on the status or engagement that they have with the officials there.
And lastly, after this morning's APEC meeting, there was no resolution on U.S. bid to host in 2023. Can you confirm that Russia is the obstacle to that U.S. hosting that summit in a couple of years? And then on the topic of Russia, there have been a number of reports in the last couple of days about concerns on the U.S. government over a potential Russian invasion of Ukraine, the troop buildup over there. Has the president reached out to President Putin? What's the level of engagement right now between the White House and Moscow?
Sure. Let me start with your first question. APEC hosting requires the consensus of all 21 economies. We thank the vast majority of members for their strong support so far. One economy, and I'm not going to confirm which economy that is, but is still undergoing consultations and has not yet joined the consensus. And our hope is certainly that we move past this impasse that is resolved and that we can continue the positive momentum on economic cooperation through APEC. And then in terms of your second question, say it one more time, I apologize.
Regarding the Russian troop buildup and Ukrainian concerns in the U.S. government about potential invasion over there, and any White House to Moscow engagement in the last couple of days regarding that buildup.
Well, in recent weeks and certainly days, we've had extensive interactions with our European allies and partners including with Ukraine, but about our concern about these reports. And during these meetings, we've, of course, been discussing our concerns about the Russian military activities and their harsh rhetoric toward Ukraine. We've also held discussions with Russian officials about Ukraine and U.S.-Russian relations generally, as we've made clear in the past, and we've made clear directly to them as well. Escalatory or aggressive actions by Russia would be of great concern to the United States. We call for an immediate restoration of the July 2020 ceasefire, and we stand with our partner Ukraine and condemn Russian aggression against Ukraine in all forms. And obviously our European conversations are about shared concern about the reports of this buildup and rhetoric. Go ahead, Andrea.
Hey, so welcome back.
Thank
Thank
you.
so much, Jen. I wanted to ask you about the Xi meeting that's coming up
Sure.
on Monday. So are you expecting anything sort of concrete to come out of it? Or is this really more about reestablishing a kind of a better basis for dialogue?
Sure. Well, I think this is why you're asking me the question. So let me just go back just briefly of kind of what our strategy has been to date. I mean, this meeting is coming after 10 months of President Biden taking action so we can outcompete China in the long term. And that means investing in ourselves at home to strengthen our own competitive hand. It means working with our partners and allies to make sure we have a united approach and a coordinated approach as it relates to engagement with China. We, of course, believe in intense competition. We believe and understand intense competition as part of that relationship. We also believe that that requires intense diplomacy. So this is a reflection of that. And if you go back to the president's phone call on September 9th, where this was discussed, and obviously there was follow-up engagement, part of the discussion was about the importance of that leader-to-leader engagement, not because we are seeking, and we're not, specific deliverables or outcomes, more because this is about setting the terms, in our view, of an effective competition where we're in a position to defend our values, which certainly will be part of the president's conversation and those of our allies and partners, and also discuss areas where we can work together. So I would see this, Andrea, as more of a continuation of that intensive diplomacy, given that we believe intense competition requires that. And I wouldn't see this as I wouldn't set the expectation, I should say, that this is intended to have, major deliverables or outcomes.
Yeah, so there were reports that President Xi could ask the president to attend the Olympics in February. What kind of signal would it send if the president were to attend the Olympics, given the concerns that have been raised about China's actions toward Taiwan, its increased aggression, kind of flights there in that region? Would that be a problematic situation for the president?
Well, I understand why, but we're getting a few steps ahead of where we are. I will also note, for all of your planning purposes, and don't want to ruin your Sundays, but there will be a preview call of the summit on Sunday that all of you will be invited to. So in terms of the Olympics or any invitation, I don't have anything for you on that at this point.
Okay, just a quick one on the economy, on inflation. So 1 in 4 Americans, according to a new survey, have experienced some kind of loss of income as a result of higher prices. The president has expressed concern about this. I know that you are working on different fronts to address this, but I mean, how urgent is it, and how, is there any sort of specific concern that this is going to affect not just political outcomes, but just the overall economy?
Sure. Well, Andrea, first let me say that, a lot of the talk about inflation, I'm not saying from you, but in general out there, has been, it's become a political cudgel, and it shouldn't be. It's impacting, as you said, millions of Americans, no matter their political party, and that's certainly of concern to the president. I would note that everyone from the Federal Reserve to Wall Street agree with our assessment that inflation is already expected to be substantially decelerate next year. I know you're not talking about that, but that's an important component here. And economists across the board also agree that the president's economic agenda, the bipartisan infrastructure bill that he will sign on Monday, and the Build Back Better bill that we are working to move forward, will not add to inflationary pressure and will ease inflationary pressure over the long term. But when we move past the economic jargon, which I realize is what you're asking me, and talk about the real impacts on people's lives, we're really talking about cost to people, right? And you talked about this on Wednesday. So it's cost of childcare, cost of housing, cost of gas, cost of household goods. That's how people are experiencing this on a day-to-day basis, and that is, of course, of concern to the president. Our view is that the real risk here is inaction, and the reason I wanted to do this slide today, I love slides and graphics on my first day back because we had to have one, but is because if we don't act on Build Back Better, what we're doing is we won't be able to cut child care costs in 2020. We know that is a huge impact on people's daily lives and American families. We won't be able to make preschool free for many families starting in 2022, saving many families $8,600. We won't be able to get ahead of skyrocketing housing costs. I mean, that's a part of this bill too. Has a major investment in building new housing, affordable housing units so that people can move into them and live in them and address the pending housing crisis. And we won't be able to save Americans thousands of dollars by negotiating prescription drug prices. So our view is this makes a strong case. This is a strong case for moving forward with this agenda, because what we're really talking about is cost to American families, how it's impacting them, and that's something that if we don't act now, we won't be able to address these things in the short term either. Go ahead.
Thanks so much, Jen, and welcome back. The president has picked Dr. Rob Califf as his pick for FDA commissioner. We've already seen Senator Joe Manchin come out in opposition against him, citing his significant ties to the pharmaceutical industry, as Senator Manchin put it. Is the White House confident that Dr. Califf can get confirmed as FDA commissioner?
We are, and I will say that the president chose Dr. Califf, and this was in his statement, but let me reiterate some of this, because he's one of the most experienced clinical trialists in the country, has the experience and expertise to lead the Food and Drug Administration during a critical time in our nation's fight to put an end to the coronavirus pandemic. I'd also note that how we see this, or how this president sees this nomination, is a continuation of what he views as excellent work under the leadership of acting FDA Commissioner Dr. Janet Woodcock, who's led the agency through a challenging time because of what's happening in the world and, of course, fighting the pandemic. I would note that 5 years ago, sorry, my math was a little off there, he was confirmed by a vote of 89-4. One of those four is the individual you mentioned, and every senator can vote for or against members or people who are nominated. That's their role, but we feel he's a qualified person who has the exact experience for this moment.
Thank you. And how many Republicans should we expect to see at the signing ceremony here on Monday?
We will see. We've invited a broad group of Republicans, some in Congress, governors, mayors, individuals who played a role in helping move the infrastructure bill forward. And as we get close to Monday or on Monday, we'll provide you, of course, a list of attendees.
Have any Republicans, like Senator Mitch McConnell, said they will not be at that signing ceremony?
I think he's spoken to this publicly, so I'll point you to that. But certainly we have the invite out to a range of members where the president looks forward to thanking them for their work, for working together to get this done for the American people.
Any confirmed, though?
Last question on the President-Xi meeting on Monday. Will the president hold a press conference afterward like he did following his meeting with President Putin? And does he plan to bring up the COVID-19 origins with President Xi, given he has said that China has been blocking investigators from getting access to information that's critical to that?
That is a remaining concern, and there will be a broad range of topics that will be discussed, and the president's certainly not going to hold back on areas where he has concern. Again, I would point you to the fact that we'll do this preview call on Sunday where they'll talk in more detail. It's Monday evening, so I would not expect a press conference that later after the call, given the time difference.
But anytime next week to hear the president talk about
I think
this?
there is one planned for after the meetings with the Mexican and Canadian leaders next week. Go ahead. I'll come back to you.
Sorry. You just said that the real risk on inflation is inaction, but so far this week we haven't seen any action from the administration on gas prices. The president in Europe said, we would see action sooner rather than later on Wednesday, that it was his top priority. So is he going to tap the SPR, ease biofuel blending requirements, ban crude exports? And if the answer is you still haven't kind of decided on any of this, what is the message to Americans headed into Thanksgiving, where everybody will be driving to see their family and friends, that you think the current prices are acceptable?
We certainly don't think that. The message to Americans is that We're not just closely and directly monitoring the situation, which of course been doing, but we're looking at every tool in our arsenal. You mentioned some of them. While I don't have anything to preview today, the president is quite focused on this, as is the economic team. And I would note again that we have taken a range of actions. We've communicated with the FTC to crack down on illegal pricing, are engaging with countries and entities abroad like OPEC on increasing supply. And we're looking at a range of options we have at our disposal, but I don't have anything here to preview for you.
Axios reported that the president's considering appointing an infrastructure czar to oversee that program. Would that be somebody that comes in from outside the White House or the administration, or would we expect the transportation secretary or somebody like that to sort of hold this position?
He does have an intent. He does intend to name a infrastructure coordinator and someone who could oversee the implementation of the bill. I don't have anything to preview yet on that personnel announcement. I expect we'll have something soon, and you can expect it'll be someone from outside of the administration.
And then last one, Senator Manchin was critical of sort of inflation this week. Obviously, there's a question of if it'll impact his vote on the Build Back Better issue, and I'm wondering if you've received any assurances from him that it will not. But also, it plays into sort of larger critique that he's had about the Fed having at some point ramped down. He wishes that they had ramped down bond buying and quantitative easing. So I'm wondering if that is a criticism that the White House agrees with, especially as the president's sort of evaluating this position going forward.
I'm just not going to get into critiquing the Federal Reserve from here or their decisions, given they make independent decisions. I would note that, and I'll let Senator Manchin, of course, speak for himself and his support or concerns he may have. What we're focused on is getting this bill passed through the House next week, and we have every intention of working with leadership to get that done. And we will remain at a senior staff level at this point, engage closely with Senator Manchin, answer any questions he has. I will note that the vast majority of outside economists agree that this is not a bill that will add to inflationary pressure. And in fact, over the longer term, it will ease inflationary pressure. And I would note just a couple of people who at times haven't always been positive about or